Hello, my name is Greg Rock, and this November I'm voting yes on I-732, the climate change initiative. I grew up in Washington, so this is my home. I have a master's degree in sustainable energy engineering, and I've spent the last 15 years of my life studying our fossil fuel dependency, the problems it causes, and the options we have. I didn't write Initiative 732, but it is very close to my perfect energy policy. This November in Washington, we have the opportunity to pass I-732, the first carbon tax swap in the nation. We can lead the U.S. towards a fiscally responsible environmental policy that's inherently scalable and spreadable, meaning it's a real solution to climate change. Initiative 732 makes polluters pay for the damage they create by putting a price on carbon contained within fossil fuels. Now you're probably thinking that means it's going to create a tax increase, but you'd be wrong. I-732 doesn't increase our taxes at all. Instead, it implements what's called a revenue-neutral tax swap. I-732 shifts our existing tax burden away from the goods, businesses, and families we want to encourage and onto the carbon pollution we want to discourage. The main tax reduction comes from reducing the state sales tax 1 full percentage point. So everything we buy at stores, restaurants, bars, that car, that bike, those tools, that tractor, that new home, all become 1% cheaper. After we pass I-732, the average household in Washington will spend a couple $100s less buying goods and a couple $100s more buying dirty fossil fuels each year. If you're a bit greener than average, you come out ahead in this tax swap. If you drive a Hummer or fly a private jet, you likely come out behind. I-732 also creates smaller, targeted tax cuts for two groups disproportionately impacted by the carbon pricing. These groups are energy-intensive manufacturers and low-income working households. The tax swap I-732 creates doesn't just benefit our environment and the economy, but it's also the biggest improvement in the progressivity of Washington's state tax system in 40 years. Putting a price on carbon doesn't just combat climate change, it reduces local air, water, and soil pollution, which affect disadvantaged communities the most. I-732 will reduce the health care bills we're paying today while helping fulfill our moral obligation to protect our children and future generations. Join me in voting yes on I-732, and please help this important campaign by volunteering and donating at yeson732.org. Obviously, I think I-732 is a great policy, this climate change initiative, but you might still be a bit skeptical. Is this really going to work? Is price alone actually a strong motivator for conservation, efficiency, and innovation? The answer is yes. But you don't need to rely on my word or the output from econometric models because we have a real-world example that we can study. Our neighbor, British Columbia, already has a revenue-neutral carbon tax swap, very similar to what I-732 proposes. A right-of-center parliament passed it into law in 2008, and the results have been phenomenal. As reported by the World Bank, over a 6-year period, British Columbia watched its petroleum consumption per capita decline by 16%, while it grew by 3% in the rest of Canada. That is a huge 19% deviation. What's really exciting is during that same period, British Columbia's rate of GDP growth was 37% larger than the rest of Canada. British Columbia's ability to reduce carbon emissions while accelerating GDP growth is why The Economist wrote about this policy with the headline, "We have a winner." But I-732 won't just replicate BC's success here in Washington. It improves on the BC policy by taking better care of disproportionately impacted groups and establishing a stronger, lasting price signal. This November, we have an opportunity to lead the nation towards climate action. I-732 would give Washington the continent's, if not the world's, most potent, persistent, and comprehensive incentive to move swiftly beyond dirty fossil fuels. Join me in voting yes on I-732, and please help this important campaign by volunteering and donating at yeson732.org. Now, needless to say, there are powerful forces on both extremes that don't like I-732, the climate change initiative. Our opponents don't want to see a centrist, revenue-neutral carbon tax swap policy implemented here in Washington or spreading across the country. They have been actively trying to stop this effort for over a year, but we push onward because science tells us that we need to act now on climate change and that passing I-732 is the most important first step we can take. This effort is funded by Carbon Washington, a small grassroots organization engaged in a classic David versus Goliath battle. In that battle, our greatest strength is you, your friends, and your family. That's who gathered the top 10 most signatures in state history to qualify this initiative for the ballot. That's who this initiative is designed to protect. With the ballots about to get mailed out, the final push is here, and we need your help. We won't win in November if you don't get involved in this campaign right now. One of the most impactful things you can do is volunteer to make phone calls. Campaigns like this are won and lost on the phones, and this is an easy way you can make a big impact from the comfort of your own home. Just click the volunteer link on our website to get started. And here's an easy thing you can commit to doing right now. Commit to telling 7 people to vote yes on 732. Telling 7 people is pretty easy, but here's the gimmick. To actually spread the word, you need to convince 2 of those 7 people to commit to telling 7 people to vote yes on 732. If we can repeat that process just 17 times, we will have reached 1 million people, which is what we need to do to win in November. Obviously, you should tell 700 people about I-732, which is about 7 hours of phone banking, or better yet, 7,000 people. But at a minimum, please commit to recruiting 2 people who, like you, will tell 7 people to vote yes on 732. This is an easy task that you can accomplish tomorrow at work. And it's a truly meaningful way to help pass the most important initiative of our time. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. With your help, this November, we can lead the world towards real climate action because we are the ones we've been waiting for. Please volunteer and donate at yeson732.org.